Welcome back. So I have your astrological transits all ready to deliver, and we're going from April 29th to May 5th, so Monday through the next Sunday, or following. Anyway, so we have Mars exactly conjuncting Neptune, or kind of we left off last week with it being really close. Or actually within minutes, I think, is where I stopped. And we also have Venus moving into Taurus, but it's going to square Pluto, so we'll talk about that. And then we have Mars moving into Aries. Well, I'll cover that as well. Plus, Pluto goes retrograde this week. And that'll last through September. But anyway, there are also just so many other aspects with the moon traveling through the signs of Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, and, like I said, into Aries. So, yeah. Hold on. I'll be right back. Bring you right over my table. Okay, so here we have Monday's chart, and I have it set for 4:32 a.m. Pacific. So this is April 29th. And I set it at that time because that is the time when Venus right here moves into Taurus. So most likely, unless you wake up really early, or earlier than 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern, or somewhere in between there, Venus will be in that 29th, that anaretic degree of Aries. But now at 4:30, 4:32, we have it here in Taurus. So now, okay, so I have to talk about Venus first again quickly to remind you. Venus is our planet that wants to bring things into harmony. It wants things to be beautiful, and we make comparison values as to what we want in our lives. It helps us to, figure out most of all what we really truly value. And of course, it rules Taurus and Libra. So it rules material possessions, naturally rules material possessions, safety, security, all things connected to the feminine. And then because it also rules Libra, we're dealing with relationships, of course. So in this earthly sign of Taurus, we can expect to have more wants, more needs, more realizing what our real needs are, but wanting to be much more secure than ever before. And with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that we just had, and the fact that Jupiter is still, there in Taurus, it's still not that far from Uranus. Look at all these planets. We have the Sun, Venus. We have a stellium of planets in Taurus. So this week should be much, much better than what we've gone through this last week, especially in regards to all the political happenings. I think I remember feeling like there would be major news dumps. And yes, we have we have the Arizona fake elector scheme indictments coming through, and I believe the same thing's going on in, well, we know Georgia, of course, has been stuck for a while, but that'll get moving eventually. But Arizona, and then we have Michigan, and what's the other state? Oh my goodness, Nevada. Yeah. So Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, and Georgia. So those things will, but probably won't be done by the election, but those things will come out, and those people will get their due. Some might get off easily, or seems to be easily, but it's because they'll make immunity agreements. They'll make some plea deals, and that makes it even worse for the ones at the top, right? So, okay. That being said, we can look to the South Node in Libra, which wants fairness and equality and justice. We can give the South Node in Libra the credit for bringing that through. And the North Node in Aries, so Venus rules the South Node, Mars rules the North Node, and the North Node in Aries, ruled by Mars, that wants to go get them. right? So all of the Aries energy was good for getting things going, for pushing, for bringing through something that could bring us closer to independence, to having more independence, to not being under some type of a dictator, ridiculous, experience. So Mercury retrograde had, remember when all these remember the Sun, Venus, all these planets up here were in Aries last week and the week before, maybe even the week before that. So we've had all this time. Well, my goodness. So yeah, Mercury retrograde does last 3.5 weeks. And it happens usually about 3 to 4, sometimes 4 times a year. Knowing that, just think of the fact that here's Mercury, and last week it was way up in, or above the North Node, and prior to that, it was way up in here. I even remember when it was back in Pisces, and there's a lot of talk about, all kinds of Piscean issues. I'm not going to go there. Let's focus in on the Mercury and Aries. So when these other planets were back here too, before the North Node, prior to, in the earlier degrees of the North Node, and the Sun and Venus were up in here as well. Just remember that Mercury had to contact all these other planets and do some, talking. Mercury talks, Mercury communicates, Mercury brings through messages, Mercury helps negotiate, it links up patterns, and it helps us to analyze things, and it rules our rational thought processes as well. And of course, you could maybe even hear it in my voice, but everybody seems to be talking more quickly. And some people are even very rash with what they say. I mean, I've had some insults this last week and the week before and the week before that. And from my own, my own subscribers, it's like, okay. So I think everybody has, I think we can safely say that we've had a lot of trauma, this last 4 to 5 years since 2015, when we knew that Trump was running for president. It's all been traumatic, and people are exhausted. We're all exhausted, and we're not out of it yet. I do not agree with somebody might say, Trump's not going to win. Yeah, of course he's not going to win, but I feel like we're just getting started, not with the trauma, but with the healing. With all these trials coming up, this is actually the healing process. You have to think of it in terms of like you were married to a narcissist or a psychopath, or you got raped by one and you had to have the baby, or there's the tension around, do I have to have this baby, or all these things in relationship to whether or not you have your freedom. So we've been stuck in this place, and we've had our freedoms taken away from us too by Scrotus, of course, right? I'll never forget that. On my birthday in 2022, that happened. Mine and Danny Shay's. It's traumatic to go through what we've gone through, and I think what's happening primarily now is that we're trying to grapple with whether or not we have a just system, a just justice system, a just system of justice. And Saturn is still 12 degrees away from Neptune, but Mars, having crossed over Saturn last week, hooked up with Saturn, conjunct Neptune, is now on the other side by Monday, because Mars moves pretty quickly. We've been grappling with this, this question, like, are we just going to be victims, and do we give up? Never give up. Never give up. Even your last breath, you don't give up, because at least the way I see it, I'm not going to tell anybody else how to live or run their lives, but the way I see it, we're all going to damn well die someday anyway. So you might as well figure out, what hill you're going to stand on, what you will stand up for, even as you're taking your last breath. And we're not going to die in some, tragic way like that. It's just more of, what are your principles? And I'm speaking to this so much, or speaking about this so much, is because all of this Taurian energy is here to help us have faith. Well, first of all, to find our principles. What is your principle? What do you care about most in your life? And it's actually about the universe as well, because whatever we care for ourselves, we should, I would think, most of us have, want other people to have the same things. We don't want justice just for ourselves, right? It's painful to see someone else be mistreated. So, in Taurus, again, remember with Taurus, ruled by Venus, and Venus is in Taurus. Jupiter is in the healing, that last, the third decan of the sign, trying to bring through that healing. Uranus has been there to help us wake up. Jupiter crossing over Uranus brought through that expansion of awareness. And it's all about, what do we hold dear to our, what do we hold dearest to our hearts? What matters to us most? Of course, it's self-preservation. Of course, women want to survive, but we also want to be free and equal human beings. And often, our government hasn't treated us that way. So, and now it's getting worse than it was for our grandmothers, right? This is insane. So we've all been under this this subterfuge, or this cloud, this like dark cloud of, and it's traumatic because we're wondering about the future. And even younger people they're not hooking up and having kids. They're not getting married. They're not, you know what I mean? They're worried about climate change. They're struggling just to get a job that pays enough because housing is so ridiculously priced. And more parents and grandparents have to help their grandkids and their children because, at least the ones up to 30-something usually. It's not rare nowadays for a 35-year-old to still live with a parent because they're trying to save up their own money for a house or to even just to make it. Like, imagine in the middle of everything, you come down with COVID like over and over again. Like, we have literally been through trauma the last 4 to 5 years. And I would say 70% of it or more we could attribute to Trump. He wiped out the CDC that would have had the precautions set in place that Obama and Biden put into place. And it's getting better. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I don't mean to feel down or get anybody down about it, but I'm here to say I understand that you don't feel safe. I understand the anxiety. And I'm not going to jump on this thing of like, oh, it's all, love and light from here. Well, we live on planet Earth, and it's a dualistic planet. And yes, in our spirits, we are nothing but love and light. But humans are complex beings, and we have all these different parts, and not all of them are in alignment with our love and light. Right? That's the thing. So this is, and the reason I'm speaking to that is this stellium here in Pisces. So we are testing with Saturn getting ready to join up at some point. It'll be a bit off quite a bit because Saturn doesn't move that quickly. Mars will be in Aries this, just tomorrow. But this is that nth degree, that 29th degree of Pisces, the last degree, which means it's more intense. So we have intense motivation to get out of victimhood, intense motivation to finish our creative projects, our artistic projects, intense motivation to care for people who can't care for themselves. I mean, this ridiculous, all of these ridiculous things that are in court that are just victimizing people like the unhoused and undocumented, and that is not where our hearts lie. We need to find solutions to help them, not persecute them. They're human beings. They're living, breathing human beings who are vulnerable and hurting. So I hope that there's some, solution that really comes through when Mars is in Aries, and then when Mars gets to Taurus, I hope that things get better in that way. But meanwhile, while women are oppressed in their ability to regulate their own reproductive rights with their own wants and needs in connection with the guidance from their doctors, and maybe decisions that are made for the whole family, while that's on the table, women, like I said, women will die. Women are dying. It is atrocious. So we're fighting for that. Venus and Taurus should help that. And the sun's going to move 1 degree every day, but Venus moves pretty quickly too. So we'll be, Venus with the sun is a good thing. The light will be shining every day on things that matter most to us. And we will be negotiating with our reality, whether if you're just alone, it'll be your personal reality. If you're a part of a family, it will be, what do you guys think, right? There'll be conversations. There'll be lots of conversations. Now, it's important to remember, like I started to say in the beginning, Mercury connected with all of these planets, right? Because Mercury went all the way to 27 degrees of Aries and then went retrograde. So Mercury's already talked to the North Node, Chiron, Aries, and then at 27 degrees it went retrograde, so it started going back. So it had to talk to Aries some more, Chiron some more, and we had the sun in there. Excuse me, hold on. We had the sun in there, and yeah, that was it. Maybe Venus was up in here too as well. I forget. I'd have to look back, and it doesn't matter. Suffice to say that Mercury connecting with Chiron and Aries, and I think Venus was in there, it was all about how much do women matter, how much do we care for the vulnerable, how much do we care for the new, things that are starting life, because we're talking with Chiron in Aries, this is like new life, right? Aries is all about new life. And how much do we care for? So it's like sometimes new life versus my life. Like, I can't be pregnant again. Let's pretend, I'm 48 years old and it's not safe to have a child this old, at least not for me or whatever, say that. I wish I was 48. No, actually, I wish I had my 48-year-old body with my 70-year-old brain here. Or maybe not, I don't know. The wisdom, that's what I wish I had, that I got. I wish I had it 20 years ago. So anyhow, with all this Aries energy here, again, remember, ruled by Mars, so it's what are we motivated towards? Well, it's always motivated towards survival. And then we have at the other end, relationships and the social sphere of things in Libra. So we've been trying to balance that out, right? Like my needs versus society's needs. Well, society might want more babies, but I can't be the one to have the baby at this point. Things like that. So we're all needing to make our own choices. Or I don't have the money to raise a baby. That's the thing, right? Things like that. These are questions that have been on the table for a lot of people. And it is now, because of that transit over all these planets and then going back over, see how it's here now, see how Mercury's here now at 16 degrees, and it went direct at 15, and now it's going back over again. So that's that threefold or three-phase movement that all retrogradations have, where you go over and then stop at some point and then go back over it, and we talk about things, we think about things. With Mercury, I'm speaking about, we are considering, what we need to do in order to survive, right? And this could be us as a nation with our rules, our justice in place, or how bad could it get if it's not there, right? I mean, all these things. So there's again the anxiety and the trauma. And I totally understand. Like, I can't stand listening to Trump's voice. If his voice comes on, I mute the TV. But I do want to hear what other people said he said, because that I can take in, right? So take it in however you can, and it might be just with the written word. But for me, I learn better if I read it and hear it. And then if I take notes and write things down, then I really get it in me. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to stay with me for very long, because we have been literally overwhelmed with information. And that is what Mercury retrograde will do, sometimes just alone, but when I can't remember the last time it went back and forth over so many different planets. This is immense. So now that Mercury's here, and we learned a lot, and we've been waiting patiently, and we've been about ready to burst sometimes. It's just way too much energy, too much fire. And we didn't, until we had the moon going through, at least last week, we had transits of the moon making aspects. But before that, everything was way over here, and it was nothing but Pisces and Aries, except for this little bit of Taurus energy here. Now we have all this Taurian energy to support us and ground us. Thank goodness Ceres was up here. Ceres, being the dwarf planet, is just as strong as Pluto and any of these other planets. In Capricorn has been very, very helpful, but you can see how it was squaring the nodes. Now Ceres is squaring Chiron and moving into an exact square. Well, it is an exact right there. Ceres 20 degrees, 48 minutes. Chiron 20 degrees, 36 minutes. It's just about exact. So I'll talk about that in a minute, but just suffice to say that Ceres holding space for what we want to nurture, and it has everything to do with women's reproductive systems, and it has everything to do with our maternal imprint, that we've been trying to let go of from the past, that past relationship we've been trying to heal, so that we could move forward and find our deepest inner gifts with Chiron moving into that second decan of Aries. So with Jupiter in the third decan, we're at that phase of deepening our lessons, and the blossoms and the fruit of understanding our lessons is coming through. But with Chiron at the second decan, we're out of, well, actually, it's at the beginning of the third decan. So I could say, and Chiron was retrograde, but since it's been direct, we're now out of the lesson learning stage, and we're into the deepening stage as well with Chiron. So the gifts should be coming through. The gifts that teach you that, yes, I can be independent. I don't need to come first. I'm not afraid of being abandoned anymore, because I'm not abandoning myself. And so we can let go. We've been letting go of impulsive tendencies to push ourselves in. At least some of us have, not everyone, of course. But we can be more, we can trust our instincts better, is just the way I want to say it. We can move forward with our instincts in place, trusting our instincts and asserting ourselves accordingly, as long as we're kind, as long as we're not pushy, as long as we're not invading someone else or bitching them out just because you don't agree with them. It'll be good, and your gifts will come through. And because now I will talk to the square to Ceres. Notice there that 20 degrees, like I was saying. The Ceres square Chiron, this will be all week long. We'll have this all week long, and we'll also have it, I was checking earlier this morning, we're going to have this all the way through to June 18th, the Ceres squaring Chiron. So what that is going to bring up is the hard work to bring through your instinctual gifts, to bring through something new, to honor this new energy that you want to give to the world, something within you that wants to give birth to your life, and it's also a gift to the world, whether you know it or not. It's a gift to the universe. And it will come from your maternal instincts. It will come from your wanting to be free and clearing out. It will come from all the hard work that you've done to clear out your maternal imprint that was not healthy, and the home environment that you grew up in, if whatever was not healthy there, this is the chance to clear it out and bring in something new. So in your natal chart, you'd want to look at the sign and the ruler of Ceres. Look for Ceres in your chart. And what sign is it in? That'll give you the flavor of, the wisdom that you're bringing through into your family in spite of their imprint. And it'll also give you clues, because there's always a light in the dark with each sign. It'll also give you clues as to maybe how you were taken for granted, or neglected, or outright abused, or whatever your maternal imprint was. Or it can be that none of those things were there. There wasn't, abuse or a whole lot of nurturing. It was just kind of a blasé, like, this is the way it is. And then, because little ones, we have to survive, so we have this symbiotic relationship with our mother caretakers, and we'll pick up on whatever they believe, how they feel, how they respond to life, and then we'll take that we absorb that into our soul substance. We magnetize that into our soul substance because we have to survive, so we have to attach, right, as little ones. So whatever they were feeling and doing and the way they responded to life, we can, unless we don't have, an issue there, we can take that on as our own. Now, some of us know better, and we see our mothers, when we're little, we'd see our mothers doing something. Now, as an infant, you don't have that ability to make that distinction. But as a little one, and as an adolescent, and as we grow up, what happens is that we look at our parents and go, something ain't right there. You know what I mean? Or why do they act that way? Or what's wrong with them? And we might take it personally and think that there's something wrong with us. But the older we get, and the more we heal, and this is a very healing, transit here, even though it's a test and it's very challenging. And it's up on the, with the moon here squaring the North Node and Mercury and moving towards Ceres. This is all about today. Everything that I'm speaking to is going to really be in place today, or in play today, I should say. So to differentiate, actually, first of all, to identify where your parents were off, where they were on, whatever, and then make those distinctions. To identify what was right is great, and then you can say, okay, well, that was loving, that was kind, that you can integrate. But then maybe again you couldn't take it in because of your own soul issues that you brought in before you came in through your parental, because I do believe that we choose our parents for all the good and the bad and the in between. But we can overcome no matter what. If you're here listening to me now, you've overcome anything. You've overcome everything that you've gone through. You're either right in the middle of getting through it, or you've already gone through it, and I'm just confirming how hard it was for you, or how hard it could have been, and maybe it wasn't for you. right? Because you didn't need to have that lesson, that particular lesson. Now, on the other side of it, what we always want to do is, or just know that in the healing process, no matter what the issue is, we want to identify the issue, but don't identify with it because it's not really who you are. No matter how bad it was, or no matter how you responded even to it as a little one or even as an adult, we want to identify what we've gone through and maybe our little bits of fault with it, or how we attached in a way that held us back. And now as adults we see like, oh, I could have handled that, so I wish I knew, younger, I could have let that go so much sooner. Don't even do that. It's a waste of time. You want to just look at it in the sense of, okay, I identify that. I identify that issue. I see it. I discern. I'm making this distinction about it. This is a very Virgo trait would be to make the distinction of the way it could have been, but also accept. Piscean energy accepts, the opposing energy of the polar opposite of Virgo, accepts that, oh, this is the way I did it. This is the way it came through for me, but I have my healing now, so I'm not identifying with it. It's not really me. It was it was my mother's issue, and I had to survive, so I glommed on to her, and I magnetized her issues into my soul substance. But now, as an adult, I don't need her to survive. I'm taking care of myself very well, thank you. And so I can set all that aside. And so there is where you do not identify with it anymore. I hope that makes sense. It can be really simple if you just kind of, draw it out on a piece of paper. Like put your issue up here at the top and put you on one side and your mom on the other, and make a list of the way your mom responded in this situation, or what she did to you, or what she didn't do to protect you, right? Didn't provide safety maybe. And then put your experience over here and your healing process over here too, right? And who knows how many pages, up and down in this column it might go. But then the healing happens when you're balancing out, when you're going back and forth and back and forth. So you're not going to identify with her anymore, and you're going to let it all go and be your own free human being. Your soul is free from that impression that you had to take in order to survive. It's gone. It's dissolved. And that would explain, this would be the Neptunian dissolution process, dissolving your soul substance from the rigidity of being victimized when you were younger. And so I'm speaking to this now because Mars is on the other side, so the energy has been moving through. But with Saturn over here, these are lessons that we can master. Spiritual lessons. Neptune, Pisces, spiritual. Saturn, lessons. Okay? And you can have a brand new spiritual foundation when Saturn becomes even closer and closer to Neptune. We've got that 12 degrees of separation now, or about 12 and a half, and that will shift. And it'll shift immensely too when Neptune gets to Aries, but that won't be until March 30th of next year. But it will retrograde back into Pisces too in the fall of 2025. So, this is on the table for quite some time. Think of dissolving, victimization, dissolving, being scattered and all over the place, dissolving, not taking responsibility for your own life, and instead move towards envisioning a brand new life for yourself. Trusting your intuition, your intuitive faculties, your sensitivities will be much more heightened. And then when it moves into Aries, you're going to have a whole new sense of spirituality that is much more instinctual. If you've been working the energy, it'll be much more instinctual, and you'll be much more independent, which is a really, really wonderful experience. But we want to make sure, because, Neptune can be all about transcending, but we want to make sure that we're not spiritual bypassing. And spiritual bypassing would be getting so caught up in everything in the outer world, or there's a numbing out that happens sometimes with Neptune, where you're numbing out from your own issues. So what you do is avoid your issues and you focus on the outer world too much. So if you don't have that balance, once you get the balance, it's okay. You know when to stop, or you know when the news is too much. You know how to take care of yourself, basically. You know how to regulate yourself. Your inner faculties. You take care of yourself, and that's what Saturn is in this midway portion into Pisces is all about. We're learning more and more about that, and for empaths, this is empathic energy here. Empaths don't survive unless they have really, really, really strong boundaries. Empaths need their downtime, they need their alone time, they need their solitude, and they also need to know how to work the energy, because it's just information. If you're empathing something, it's just information. You don't have to keep empathing it. But you do have to find out if it's information for you or for someone else. And you do that by asking your body. You set the intention, like, okay, I feel this. If this is mine, this is what I do anyway. I tell my body, okay, if this is for me, intensify it so that I can work with it. Let me know what's going on, and I'll stop and work with it. But if it's not me, then leave. Leave my body. I don't need this pain if it's not for me to work with. And then, that's usually... that you'll usually figure out, like, okay, who are you thinking about before? Who is it that you're about to meet? Who is it that you're working with? Or it might be even a group of people, things like that. So then you don't feel like a victim, right? When you can make that distinction, that discernment as to, and this speaks to all this Taurian energy too, because Taurus is all about the body. Right? This is owning a body, being in a body. This is why Taurus is so related to self-preservation. So if you are in the process of trying to discern whether or not your body hurting is empathing from someone else, or if it's your own, you have to stop and make those distinctions and let your body teach you. And with Jupiter in the last decan of Taurus, and having that journey with Jupiter conjunct Uranus, again, body awareness and lessons. Jupiter is the teacher of the zodiac. Jupiter and Saturn are the builders of the zodiac. Jupiter in Taurus has been teaching us about how to take better care of our bodies, how to take better care of our boundaries with what we'll spend our energy on and money on, things like that. Taurus is all about money and energy and the faithfulness that we have to ourselves and others, the others that we love. And with you can see the trine that we see how Aries is coming into an exact trine to Uranus here, that 22 degrees. We're only 2 degrees off there. Well, Aries is pretty close to 21 degrees. Uranus is still in the beginning stage of 22 degrees. So this is an applying trine, like wax on. Think in terms, and this same thing with the moon. Any of these planets that are, in the earlier degrees, and you can see that they're going to connect with a planet. Well, the moon's an luminary, not a planet, but so, look how it's at 14 degrees, and it's the beginning of a process of a trine, an exact trine to Uranus. So every hour that goes by, it's going forward. That's that waxing on. So think in terms of wax on, wax off. That's the way it helps me. Imagine, I don't know, probably all of you have done this before. You've waxed your cars. I don't do it anymore. Well, they have those coatings that they just throw on them when you buy them new, and then you can have them up, redone. But Boy, I remember back in the 80s, I did a lot of wax on and wax off. So you're waxing on, and that's all the hard work, right? And you're getting it, like you're working it in, right? And then you might let it sit for a minute, or you're just in the process of waxing it off, and it comes off, and then all the beauty comes through. That's the same process when we're making contacts with planets. So the applying energy is stronger. We're working it, it's work. It's work. And then the separating energy is, like, for instance, here, well, we're past it because there's like 4 degrees here of separation. But remember when Ceres was literally squaring the nodes. Remember when Ceres was at 15 degrees and it was exactly squaring the nodes? There was that hard work of making decisions around, how to take care of ourselves, because we're in this position, and it is traumatizing, and it does bring up anxiety for everyone, that we can't trust our government. The government, for the most part, is going through a transformation, an incredible transformation. And it's a very slow process. And this, of course, is because, we had, in the USA, we had our first Pluto return. Remember when Pluto was at 27 degrees of Capricorn? That is where in the natal chart, in the Sibley, July 4th, 1776 chart, the birth of our nation, we have Pluto at 27 degrees of Capricorn. So we went through that exact conjunction in 2022, and we're still going through it. In fact, Pluto later on this week, you'll see the 2nd, Thursday, May 2nd, Pluto goes retrograde. And as it goes back, I don't think it goes to 27. It goes back to 29, and then it'll go direct and go forward. It won't make it. Well, I'll talk about that when we get there. But so it'll never hit that 27 degree again. Well, yeah, it will in about another 243 to 248 years. That's how long it takes for Pluto to get around. So this was our very first bringing up the darkness. That, our founders weren't perfect, and none of us as humans were perfect 243, 45, 46, 40, whatever, about 250 years ago. We are always learning. We are always evolving. So that's why it's really important to not beat yourselves up, or try not to beat others up too much either, except for damn well hold them accountable if they are on the dark side, because if we let them get away with it, we're not only going to be abusing ourselves, we will, if we're going to go into that pessimistic place and not believe that our votes matter and think that it's all just a big sham and all of that, then again, what hill are we standing on? Because life is always a test. Earth school is test. Earth is a school. Every day there's a test, right? And so Mercury brings up the information as to the test. The sun is going to shine a spotlight on what it's testing. Mercury in Aries, of course, is all about new life, thinking about new life and new things and the way to go. Which way do I go, right? And with the sun in Taurus, it's about, okay, what will bring me into safety? What do I do to preserve myself and my family? And with all these other planets here, in Pisces and Aries, it's like with Pisces, we want it to be done and we want it to be compassionate and loving and kind. But no, there are these people who are grifting. There are these people who are sucking in money from other countries. There's this one man in particular who I believe is getting all of his legal fees paid through money laundering through this transnational crime syndicate. And I'm hoping that they're able to track it. I'm hoping that somebody is able to track that, but I don't know. So this is the world we live in now. But no matter what is going on in the outer world, I want you to know that you are just fine, and that you can tap into the place where life is for you. And again, just go back to, what is my lesson for today? What do I want to stand up for today? And how best can I take care of myself as I move through it? And, how well can I love myself and others as I move through it? And yeah. So, and sometimes too, it's helpful just to have a good sense of humor about it. I don't see one stand-up comedian out there, and especially anyone that has much of a voice, who is for the former guy. All they do is make fun of him, and he might not know it, but he's turned into the laughing stock of our country. And other countries are worried about being, he's so abusive. Other countries are worried about being in alliance with us, and they're even starting to make decisions like Plan B, like how do they appease him if he were to win again? Well, that's dark. That's really dark. Unless they're, how do they stand up to him, then that would be working in the light. But we'll see what they're doing. I mean, that idiot from Poland, which he's not even a guy that was really in charge anyway. But, Trump is doing, so this is how he's working through his darkness. He's working with with what he thinks, who he thinks are leaders from other countries, because he wants to establish that position, already. Well, it's not going to work, but he's doing what he can. Because, he's always got to be, so that's the thing with narcissists and psychological, neurosis and the psychopathy. They always have to be the one above. It's always to be in the highest levels of darkness, you have to be at the top, because it's a territorial system. Whereas in the light, with Neptune, it's a very inclusive system. Everyone is equal. Neptune and Pisces, everyone is equal. We don't want to leave anyone out, right? Every single piece of the puzzle matters. In fact, if a piece of the puzzle is missing, it's not complete. We want it complete. It needs to be included. Everyone needs to be included. That's on the light. But the dark side is all about territory and numbers. So, that's one good way to think about it, I suppose. So, okay, what else? We can see that Saturn has moved 1 degree away from the inconjunct to the south node. So we are still, we're in the wax off stage for now, but we're still learning as to who has colluded in dark relationships, who might still be in that, and who these people are. You can look at all of Trump's attorneys, and you want to see the darkest of the dark and the most confused and deluded. There they are. Okay, so let's see. And then some of the Fox News guys, like that Waters. Like, what an idiot. Okay. Is that about it for the... No, let's see. I need to talk about Pluto here squaring Venus. Let's see how Pluto's at 2 degrees. Venus is at 0 degrees. So every degree forward that Venus moves forward, it's going to be, we'll get closer to the sun to bring some light into the situation. But with the square to Pluto, we're looking at intense power confrontations, intense tests related to who's in power and who's not. Pluto in Aquarius does want freedom. Pluto in Aquarius is all about, it's the change agent. Uranus is the change agent, with the trine up to Ceres and the light of the moon helping. Again, there's the change should be headed towards women having their freedom and their reproductive rights and the ability to earn the same amount of money, be paid, actually, the ability is already there, but the fact is they're usually paid a third less than what men make for the same job. That needs to stop. And the same thing with, with a person of color being offered less money than a white person. That needs to stop as well. All of these things need to stop. And so, yeah, that's all I have to say about that. But Pluto squaring Venus in Taurus, Venus just alone in any sign, doesn't matter, is all about money. Taurus makes it doubly about money. And with the square, there's a test to, will you believe in yourself enough to ask for that raise? Will you believe in yourself enough to get away from that employer who's using and abusing you and everyone else and find a new job? Or how about be self-employed? How about start, maybe while you're working for this awful employer, you're also starting your own business on the side. Now, on the dark side of this square, it would be people in positions of power who don't care about other humans, who are bigoted and just disconnected from the heart. And all you have to do is look at what they do, really. How do they invest their money? Do they invest it back into the employees? Is it an employee? Do the employees have much power? Those kinds of questions. And are they in integrity? It's always about integrity, right? So Pluto, just like it did when it was in Capricorn, will bring to light the darkness in some people in positions of power and corporations in positions of power. It doesn't matter what type of corporation it is, but Aquarius is all about technology. So, and we're seeing, remember that monopoly lawsuit that the DOJ put on Apple, right? There's that came through. I don't know how it's working out, but I do remember that happening. I think it was last month. Yeah. So anyway, those things are there, and that relates to just some lessons. The DOJ would be Saturn, and the technology companies would be ruled by Uranus, and they maybe in Taurus they've been a little too greedy. And that also, Uranus relates to Aquarius. And then Pluto, of course, is that transformation that needs to happen, and the power dynamics. So with the square to Venus all week long, we're needing, well, actually, I think it only goes through Saturday. I think the square's done by Saturday. But we're working within those dynamics around where do we want to spend our money or save our money, and what would bring more power and freedom into our lives. Like if we save up money for something in the future, you're saving up for a down payment on something, or you're just saving up a nest egg, right? Because we need to have little nest eggs. And the more the better there to save for the future. But then also, where do we spend our money so that, when you pay different people that bring service to you, you want to bless those payments and those people and be in that benign circle of abundance, knowing that when you're paying for something that brings value into your life and it's nurturing other people at the same time, that's more icing on the cake, right? But I'm not saying to go buy cake, because you probably will regret that. At least I would. Okay, let's see. We have the moon Not yet, but it will. Notice it's at 14 degrees. Before I move on to tomorrow's, the moon at 14 degrees of Capricorn. So we're halfway through the sign. So we're in that second decan where we don't mind, learning the nuts and bolts of something. We don't mind working. We're kind of duty bound and very responsible. And so with the aspects to the moon, you can see that we have the sextile to Saturn. Okay, so we've got a creative opportunity going on here. If you can tap into your duty and connect with relationships that, still stay connected to relationships, maybe there's some strength that is developing in relationships with others because of this square. Squares usually bring through tests and decisions. So maybe you're making decisions in relationships that, it's like because you want them with you. We don't want to leave them behind, or you don't want them to leave you behind. You want relationships over here. And you're determined to bring value to your relationships, and they're, usually reciprocal in that same energy. And then with the sextile over here to Saturn, this can bring through this, major, because we're in the second decan in this sign over here too. So again, we're learning lessons as far as the spiritual foundation, the spiritual integrity within our relationships. And that's really wonderful. And as the moon goes, every hour forward today, it'll get closer and closer to Ceres. And then we'll start having a little bit of a connection to Neptune. So I'll talk about that when we get there. But let me make sure. Ceres to Uranus, the trine, the quick-moving energy there is really important. As it's moving forward, it's going to get even tighter, and there will be major breakthroughs that come in, because Uranus is always related to breakthroughs. It can be something that just happens overnight, like you wake up one morning and you don't have that problem you had bugging you. It's just, this is not important anymore. And you're even like, how could that have even bothered me, right? Or it could be that you have some awarenesses like that, because Uranus brings in that aha moment, or aha guidance, where you're just doing stuff around the house. Maybe you're vacuuming or doing dishes or loading the dishwasher or whatever. However you're just going about your day, and all of a sudden you get a piece of guidance. It's like, oh, okay, I never thought of that, and it helps free you up. In this situation with Taurus, it could either help bring through something that you really value, or help you. It could be a new money-making idea. It could be a new invention that will bring through much more love and bliss, or it could even be love, bliss, money, all of that. It could even be a new way to take care of your body that you hadn't thought of. Maybe something's been bugging you, like maybe it's you've had problems with some part of your body, and you've been praying for guidance to see what the cause was, and how do I heal this? Very, 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 very possibly you could get direct guidance that gives you that information with this aspect here. Because Ceres in Capricorn would be related to the bones, muscles, our entire skeletal system, our connective tissue. Maybe you've been dealing with something like fibromyalgia, but then, you've also been doing your personal process work and grieving and going through a lot of pain, and maybe it's getting better because, the whole, the fascia and the whole emotional body are one. Like our whole, it's called, what was that guy's name? That Dr. Winnicott. Winnicott is a guy I studied under, didn't study with him because he's way old, but read his works. And he thought that the entire connective tissue and fascia, like that whole system in our body, was fully formed and like set at a certain level of integrity, like whether it was pliable and flexible or whether it was kind of rigid and stuck because of trauma, that was formed by 15 months old for the baby. And then the rest of our lives we're trying to heal it, either make it stronger and not be too flexible, or maybe we are flexible and that's, you have an easier lifetime with that, and that's because you had parents that were there and met you had your needs met. The baby had its needs met. When the baby cried, the mother came and took care of it, right? Things like that. The warmth and the love and the connection was there enough that there was a flow. But if you didn't have that, then you have this this fibrous material or the fascia and connective tissue in your body can be tense and rigid in some areas and then too flexible in others, and you're having to work all that out. And as an adult, you feel it. The older you get, you feel things more. With all this Piscean energy, things are much, much more sensitive. With all the Taurus energy, much more sensitive in the body. Okay? So whatever you're going through, whatever grieving you've gone through, if you've grieved your childhood, you have done so much healing that by now with Ceres at that 20th degree, almost 21st degree, in that third decan, we are now blooming and blossoming because we've gone through the lessons, right? We've gone through the lessons and we've been freeing ourselves up from the past, and our bodies come with it, and we become more conscious. Like areas of, wherever we are deluded and unconscious and distorted, that lives in our body somewhere. All right, it's not outside of us, and it's not just stuck in our head. It's in the body, mind, spirit it's all one. So all the work that you do to become more conscious, it winds up freeing you. It turns into freedom, so that your life force works, in the light rather than going back in on itself. The problem with staying stuck and in the darkness and not going through the grieving and not doing your personal process work, the problem with that is that you get stuck in, literally your body is stuck and it's not flowing. The nervous system doesn't flow freely. The parasympathetic system doesn't. The energy just can't, go the way it should. So you don't end up having a body that receives the nurturing from the flow of the universe. Instead, it's stuck in like a kind of limbic brain issue, like, getting very, it can be very, very challenging because you can get stuck in cycles of anxiety. That's and a lot of times just like massaging the back of your neck below the upper part of your neck right below the occipital bone, that can make a big difference if you're in anxiety. And everyone probably knows like the vagal nerve, that there's lots of videos in YouTube where you can learn how to massage there to release stress and release anxiety. So check those out if you need that. It helps immensely. It'll help you with your breathing because, breathing and letting go and relaxing is just everything, getting through these times. So, and we're almost through it, it'll, once Mercury gets past Chiron and Aries, we're going to have all these planets in Taurus and things will be much more grounded, and we'll see things more clearly. The energy won't be moving as quickly, although Mars is going to move into Aries, so let's talk about that. Okay, so now Tuesday, and this one is, this event begins at, I think it's at 8:33 here. Yeah, 8:33. Mars moves into Aries. You can see Mars is right here. Okay. It's still 15 degrees away from the North Node, so it's just kind of out on its own. But, excuse me, it has picked up. Oh, hold on. I need to get some water. A second. Oh, that's better. Okay, so Mars has picked up all of that compassionate energy and spiritual energy from Pisces. And now in Aries, it's like, okay, what do we do with it? I know so much more now. What do I do with this? So that's up to you, of course. But notice how we have the moon today. Besides Mars moving forward in Aries, Mars in Aries is natural. So the Sun in Taurus is in Venus in Taurus is in a natural place, and Mars rules Aries, and that's in a natural place. So this is really wonderful when it comes to the two sextiles we have going on here between Mars and the Moon and Pluto. So it could be a very mentally stimulating day, especially first thing in the morning, because with the Moon to Pluto, we're going to be trying to assimilate, because the Moon is the public and it's our moods. Remember, the Moon likes to connect to things, and it likes to respond to life, and it's the way that we digest information in very intuitive ways where we're not really thinking about it, but it's very instinctual. Well, in the sign of Aquarius, then that brings in being more friendly. Maybe we're thinking more altruistically. Maybe we're thinking of new things that we want to invent even. Aquarian energy can be genius. It can be very independent, but it can also be, so it just depends. It's usually it can be very fair, but then it can also be very extreme and unfair. It just depends on who it is. Well, with the bumping up against Pluto here this morning, I think we're gonna figure out something about people in power, and then Mars in Aries is going to bring us into, going into a certain direction. So where this is in your natal chart is really important too. Find out where Pluto is in your natal chart, what house it's in, and you'll see that that's where you can bring in more empowering consciousness into yourself, and it will be by having more friends of your like-minded consciousness with you. It's much more friendly and wanting to connect. Now, with Mars and Aries and the sextile here, this isn't good for people who are wanting to be extreme. They're going to learn some lessons. There's always the earlier degrees. We've got the development of laying some kind of a foundation. Well, if it's not a good foundation, then by the time you get around to the 10th degree, it's that firk around and find out phase. Thank you, Libby, over at Meister Tarot, for the word firk. That's how I can get around being a bad girl on YouTube. Or we could say the mess around and find out phase, but I like firk better. So anyway, with the moon in this double sextile to not only Mars and Neptune, or to not only Mars but also including Neptune, some people are still going to be deluded. They're still going to be emotionally extreme and deluded, and they're going to want to just go off with that energy. So this is a good day to stay home if you can. I definitely would be careful if you're out on the road, because this is opportunistic energy that connects very quickly. But the way we can use the energy the best is to let your intuition guide you into meditation and figure out ways that you can move forward towards more freedom, because you can bring in something new as Mars is moving through Aries. And this is that first foundational, day of new Aries. It's really springtime now. We will all be in springtime. I still have very cold mornings, but it's shifting. I won't have flowers until the summer. That's just the way it works here. But I do have short summers too. It doesn't get that hot for that long, usually. Unless you get stuck in one of those heat domes. Oh my God, those are awful. But anyway, so yeah, and we can see all the squares here from Ceres because see that 20 degrees there to Chiron. I've spoken about that. But Mercury, now that Mercury is direct, it's coming this way, right? So Mercury is getting tighter with Chiron. So again, that's speaking to ourselves in ways that can help bring through our natural independence and our the way that we can create win-win situations in our lives and move forward, coming from our instincts and being very present with ourselves. Because with Chiron at that 20 degrees of Aries, we're in that place where our gifts are blossoming. They're coming through. The buried treasure is coming up, and we are more and more independent every day. And then especially with Chiron connected to Aries, we have more courage. Very, very, there's a lot of courage coming in here with Chiron. Now, if it's not courageous yet for you, if you're still working within that, trying to find your courage, that wouldn't surprise me either. But just know that the way to work that energy, if you're still working it, would be to connect with your maternal imprint, like I was speaking about before. And again, go back to that place where you can differentiate between your mother's issues or your home, your home environment, those issues, and bring through your own independent spirit, bring through who you truly are outside of whatever whatever that setup was for you. You don't have to live with that anymore. Question every time you start to limit yourself in your life and think things like, "Oh, I can't do that. What would they think?" Or "How could no, I can't do that." Just question those false beliefs and do your best to turn yourself around and start something brand new, because Mercury's coming in is going to bringing you new ideas to help bring through that new life. And Venus, notice how Venus has already moved 1 degree, 1.5 degrees already there. The Sun moved 1 degree too. Jupiter's even 1 degree ahead. And so life is moving along. And just remember, life is for you. Open up to those new ideas that can bring in more freedom while the moon's in Aquarius today. And no matter what challenges may come in, with your attitudes or with maybe other people that say, well, first of all, if you're trying to invent something new and you're able to, well, actually, we're always able to. This is the thing that I want to say. When you're developing something brand new, it's always a good idea to keep quiet about it at first. Just work with I've done this many, many times, and it's not a good idea to go around asking other people for confirmation for you to start something new. Now, it's always fine to get advice as to how to do it, but if you go around and you're asking for permission to do something that you would love to do, first of all, you have to know that's off. Like what's off within you that you need confirmation from the outside to do something that you love. That would be coming from our childhood wounding, and then that would be an area to explore. Or maybe you don't need to, you just need to know that, just go for it. But develop your internal creative imprint first, and then put yourself out there once it's strong and developed. With all the Aries energy, sometimes it's normal to just go off, and especially with Mars and Aries too, to just go off and just start with it, and then you bump up against all these other people who don't think that that's a good idea, and then it gets stifled. Your creativity gets stifled, and it's like a seed that's thrown into the dirt but not pushed in to where it's protected and not watered, and it didn't even get sunlight. Or the little sprout that comes up and somebody steps on it or pulls it right out. You don't want that to happen. You want to protect yourself And the reason I'm speaking to this is the fact that we don't have the moon over here in any of these other nurturing signs yet. We're in Aquarius, where it's, new ideas coming through and kind of revolutionary, maybe even rebellious energy coming through, but there's a good level of reasoning abilities with it. And then Piscean energy, when the moon gets there, it's kind of nebulous, but it can be very, very creative. These are good for making plans, but keep quiet about it. Keep it to yourself. So, okay, let's go ahead and go to Wednesday. Wednesday, May 1st, the moon is well over, by 4:30 in the morning, well over the other side of Pluto. So whatever power issues or powerful inventions you were bringing through, that is, you're now kind of free of that, and you're moving we're into the second decan of the sign. So we've learned some lessons, and we're learning even more lessons until we get to that, that night through the 19th to the 20th degree. And we've got the trine to the south node. So the past, because the south node always relates to the past, and relationships maybe as mirrors are helping you with that. But more as a reflective point, because like I said, if it's something new that you're inventing, you want to be quiet about it for a while, okay? And then, with that 11 degrees, let's see, those aspects are too weak. I don't need to talk about that. Let's see. Yeah, as the moon moves forward, now it's not going to make any aspects to it because we don't have anything over here. My goodness. But again, you can see how we're moving along this way. That's for sure. So with the moon, and I'll just talk about that. Let's just go with just purely talking about the moon. We do have the aspect of the architect to come. Do we? Wait. No, those don't connect. Okay. Let's just talk about the moon in Aquarius. So again, the moon wants to digest with the moon, we're always responding from our instincts. We're responding from our guts. We're responding from our intuition. And we want to nurture ourselves that way too, because it controls our daily habits, our eating habits. Things might be kind of electrified in Aquarius, but we might be wanting to have more fun. We are all either going to be kind of cranky, and that's especially true with the square to the sun, because notice how both are at 11 degrees. So there can be that tension field with, especially with the sun in Taurus. Taurus wants to be safe, wants to be secure, and we want to stabilize ourselves, and we don't want to go that quick. But the moon in Aquarius wants to go quick, and it wants to be free. Again, not good for driving, not good for getting into an argument with someone. There's stubborn energy at the Taurus end and rebellious energy at the Aquarian end. And so we want to be careful about words and arguments with people that are just on the other side of it. Their opinions are in a different place, or what they're wanting is in a different place. If you're over here and you're wanting to go slow, and you're working on something, you're developing something that is laying a foundation for you in your life, and then you've got this person over here that just wants to disrupt you and get your attention and, whatever else. It might be fun for a little bit, but then you're like, oh, dang it, I've lost 2 hours and I need to get back to what I started. It can be something like that. Then again, because the moon rules the public, there could be something that comes out on the news because, Mercury's still going back over everything that it covered when it was retrograde, and we know what we've been through in this last month, and now things are coming out to bring through justice. And with the moon trining the south node of the past in Libra, it is all about justice. So there could be a news dump. And, so I would say the best way to use the energy for the day is to allow for things to take a lot longer than you intended for them to take, to bring to completion. And then, then things will work out. But again, don't waste time in arguments. That's probably a good idea always, especially on those days you need to get something done. So yeah. And now you can see with Mars way over here in Aries, now you can see that separation between Saturn and Saturn and Neptune more clearly. And again, your spiritual foundation is growing and deepening, and the relationships that you want, to stay with, you're making adjustments to allow for that, or you're making adjustments to get away from relationships that are holding you down. And today there might be information about that with the moon in Aquarius. But there's that natural trine between Libra and Aquarius is they're both air signs, and they both want social, the social connection is there with Libra, and the bigger picture with Aquarius. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So it could be a really good day for social, all types of social interactions. Of course, hanging out with friends and being involved in groups with like-minded spirits, your kindred spirits. And let's see. Yeah, it's just the square to the sun square, the moon square the sun. The moon square the sun is the only problem. But it's passing. Let's see. By what time? Let me scooch over this way. Let's see. It'll probably be easier like this. Maybe this way there. How long does it take before the moon is in enough of a separating phase to, 11 to 16? That's about it right there. Yeah. Well, it's still, so that's 1:30 p.m. So it's really just mostly the morning, I would say. But going forward, it's like the program is still, now it's gone. By 4:30 p.m., it's totally gone. But we still have that trine to the south node. And then by 4:30 p.m., the squares connect with Jupiter and Uranus. So, and with the moon in the afternoon on Wednesday, being in the second decan of Aquarius, we've definitely learned some lessons. Even if we got distracted, we've learned something about ourselves, and we learn by doing, right? And with the squares to Jupiter and Uranus, I think it might be still a test and a challenge, because we're wanting to be free. We're really wanting to be free. And that's the test. I guess maybe that's just the issue all day long is what can we do? So the sun in Taurus will shine a light. Jupiter and Uranus will hold space for us to understand. And Pisces, all the Piscean energy is helpful for understanding too. We'll understand better by the end of the day all the ways that we could waste energy and not get the important things done. And we'll learn something about ourselves, So it'll help us in the long run. It will help us better understand what matters most to us. So that's the best thing I can say about Wednesday. Thursday, Pluto stations retrograde at 10:47 a.m. Pacific, and it's retrograde at 2 degrees of Aquarius. So when this happens, I mean, we've already, it's kind of, it's inched forward a little bit because we've already done this once. So this is the second time. But it'll be the last time because it's gonna. So the way it's gonna go, you're probably gonna want to write this down because wherever this is in your chart is really important. So I have a list of dates over here. I'll read to you. So, this is gonna retrograde eventually back into Capricorn. So it starts today, and it's going to retrograde back into Capricorn. It's going to go backwards, and then by September 1st, 2024, of course, it'll be at 29 degrees of Capricorn, and it'll sit there, right? It's not going to move much. And then on October 11th, it will station direct at that 29th degree, so that anaretic degree. So for us personally, we're going to have another little opportunity, not little, we're going to have another opportunity to get even more deeply connected. We have an opportunity, if we didn't make it the first or the second time, this is the last time for this lifetime, right? Because these are once in a lifetime transits with Pluto. We're going to have the opportunity to get really deeply in touch with our inner authority. That's what Capricorn's all about. It's about that in your bones, in your body, authority, where your body is deeply in touch with your spirit's deeply connected, infused into your body. We're going to have more and more of that opportunity. And so then the process for the dates, what we're going to do is, it's going to, like I said, October 11th, it'll connect at that 29th degree of Capricorn. And so it stations direct then. October 11th goes direct, 29 degrees Capricorn, and then it moves forward, and then it finally makes it back to Aquarius, 0 degrees Aquarius again, on November 19th, 2024. And then it stays in Aquarius. And it will stay in Aquarius until... And it'll do retrogradations back and forth in Aquarius too, but it'll never go back to Capricorn again. And we will have the experience of Pluto in Aquarius from November 19th, 2024 through March 18th, 2043. Okay, so there's that. So just, write that down and keep it somewhere by your chart or in your folder. If you have a folder with your natal chart in it, that's what I recommend. So anyway, I find it, everything else is the same, except for everything's moved forward like 1 degree with the personal planets. You can see that. But I find it really interesting that Pluto goes retrograde, moving back this way. It's never going to catch up to Ceres, because Ceres is going to retrograde on May 14th and start going back. So don't think about those connections there. But I find it interesting that the moon's at 29 degrees of Aquarius when this event happens here. So May 2nd, 10:47 a.m., the moon's at 29 degrees, that anaretic degree of Aquarius. So anaretic means intense. And in Aquarius, it can be intuitive. The moon is intuitive. Aquarius is naturally intuitive. It can be also very intensely sociable, like wanting to connect and hang out. It can be a high energy day of all types of connections. And see this yod going on here too, right? And this will be here tomorrow too. But the yod goes, so a yod is finger of fate, finger of God. And what it is that it's a sextile and then 2 inconjuncts. So one end of the sextile here is at the sun, and the other end is at Saturn. Okay. And so it's a 0 to 3 degrees aspect, so we've barely got it right here. It's like right at the beginning of it. So for the next couple days, I think, we'll see. So Saturn to the sun Okay, so again, Pisces and Taurus are both signs that can bring in great amounts of bliss. And with the moon in Aquarius, it can be related to some kind of freedom. And then it all points back to relationships and justice and fairness and equality. So I hope that SCOTUS will have a decision about the immunity, baloney that they shouldn't have even, they should not have even taken it on. They just should not have. They should have kicked it back down to the DC Circuit Court because they had it perfect there. And they've already effectively, just by taking it on, they effectively have given Trump a lot of what he wanted, which is to delay anything until after the election. But it doesn't matter. He's not going to win anyway. But unless you guys don't go vote, unless a lot of people decide not to vote because everybody keeps saying he's not going to win. So I should stop saying that. But no matter what, we're going to be okay because we have ourselves and we'll get through this together. No matter what, we'll always get through everything together. And this is the point right here. We're all together, right? Pisces includes. Taurus is careful about who it lets in, but once you're in, you're in. It's like that circle of trust, right? And then it's all about relationships that are engaged in fairness, devoted to fairness and equality. Justice, fairness, and equality. So let's see, anything else with the moon square? That's a sesquisquare. We're going to probably stubbornly hold on to what is fair. So there's that. I like that. Series with the square to Aries, Chiron, and now Mercury's involved. So there's a lot of talking about independence. Yeah. And notice how Mercury is involved in the opposition to the South Node. So again, talking and thinking and gathering information about freedom and equality and justice. So, okay, let's go ahead and go to Friday. And then the yod is even tighter. And you can see the moon coming in there too, right? So I did speak to the yod already. It's finger of fate, finger of God. It's just a focal point, at either between planets or in this situation, the South Node was just a point in space. It's the South Node of the moon. So we have to remember that and understand that with the South Node, it's always about a point in space, the polarity point, North Node being the future, South Node being the past, but we're all grappling within how do we be independent, focus on our independence, but also fairness and equality. Well, I don't think that's hard to do, but that will probably be what we're all talking about. And the nodes move backwards, right? So this 15 will move back to 14, and they go retrograde sometimes too, but it doesn't really mean a whole lot, if anything. So the moon, with now at 6 degrees of separation from Saturn at 5 a.m. Friday morning, May 3rd, and the deal there is just it's going to get more and more serious. So there might be some public displays of, we know there's going to be grifting going on because that just hasn't stopped. I mean, man, the con, the scam, the grift is, that's something that we're seeing and just, it's amazing to me. It's despicable, but it's amazing. And so with the double sextile coming over to the sun, the moon to the sun, there's an opportunity here for, so to use this energy positively, would be maybe this is for someone out there, this is a good time to apply for Any type of a government program, because Saturn rules the governmental assistance. Maybe something comes out that Biden's doing. Remember there's been a lot of student debt relief. So maybe something else will come out. Maybe there's going to be some work with humanitarian efforts in another part of the world. Immigration is ruled by Pisces, Neptune and Pisces. I mean, this sojourn, this last 14 years with Neptune and Pisces, we definitely have been talking a lot about it. Those things need to be taken care of, so that there's amnesty for those who need it, and then but we can't just let everybody in, because we don't. Well, I don't know. Unless we figure out a way. But then again, I think most immigrants work really, really hard, and I think they bring tremendous innovation into our country, and we are a country of immigrants. Unless you're Native American, we're all immigrants, right? So, okay, anyway, with the double sextile over to the sun, the moon is bringing in intuitive opportunities to strengthen your financial interests and your stability, your security. And Saturn is also, with the sun, has moved forward enough to where it's in the applying, the waxing on stage of the opportunistic sextile here to Saturn. So again, your spiritual foundation, you're mastering your creative abilities within, and your connection with your guides and your guardian angels to keep you on your path. And the sun in Taurus over here is helping to bring through more, believing in yourself, being faithful to yourself and your principles, and just building that solid foundation, a solid spiritual foundation. Very creative, solid spiritual foundation. Now the sun, with the inconjunct over here to the south node, will also bring along those friends. You'll be making adjustments as to who you let into your inner circle of trust, like I was speaking about. And there's a lot of intuitive flow because of the moon hooked up with the sun as well. And every degree that the moon, so every hour that goes by today, see how Saturn's just going to sit there at 16 degrees, but the moon, how much longer? There it is. Okay, 3 p.m., we have the moon conjunct Saturn exactly. But we still have the yod going on, right? Still have that finger of God that's related to, again, putting yourself on that bridge of justice, fairness, and equality in your social connections, your friends, your loved ones. Libra is all about relationship. It's all about engaging. It's all about sharing opportunities with those that you love and care about. And it's very self-reflective, because you can go back and forth and understand more about yourself and the others, right? The only way to mess this up is to be very non-committal and flounder around, flop around, and that could happen with the Piscean energy over here too. The only way to be working it in the darkness would be to be very manipulative and polarizing. Well, we know who's going to do that. We know who's going to grift off their, constituents, and I'm also just really worried about like money laundering. I really hope that is proven someday and stopped, because we know it's happening. There's the Panama Papers, Paradise Papers, and the Pandora Papers. There's a website called ICIJ.com. It's the Investigative Consortium of... No, I'm sorry. international consortium of investigative journalists or journalism. I think it's journalists that keep investigating all over the world, and they're connecting dots all over the world, talking about who's doing what and how they're working in darkness, and that involves all of the human trafficking. So it really needs to stop. Mercury is still in the same 18 degrees there. I'm going to go ahead and move on. So let's look at Saturday. Saturday we have the moon conjunct Neptune at 12:06 p.m. But I clocked it here at 5 a.m. so you can see how early it starts. This is excellent dream time guidance time, Friday night to Saturday morning. You definitely may, well, I would say it's always a good idea to have a dream journal next to you, but you may definitely be using it to write things down, whatever came through. And you can also ask for guidance as to, there's a thing that I always do when I remember, when I just say, if I forget, please do it anyway. I thank my guides and guardian angels for healing my body when I sleep. And especially if you're having problems in one certain area or another, to pray for extra work. But do it with thanks. The way you want to pray is in the positive, in the affirmative, giving thanks for it already being done. If you're like, please, 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 you're just going to sit in the please. But you want to have you want to be thankful for having it done. And it's amazing how it works. So you wake up in the morning and feel fine. Or sometimes you just, you wake up and you're sore because you really know you overdid it, like working in the garden or whatever. Spring cleaning, right? You live and learn. So anyway, but Dreamtime guidance is particularly profound when we have the moon conjunct Neptune in any sign, but especially in Pisces. Especially in Pisces. So whatever you're trying to get support with, whatever support you need, drop it into Dreamtime, ask for support. Even if you're learning something very mundane. I remember getting support once to learn Excel. I was having trouble learning Excel back in the day before they had tutorials. You pretty much had to get like an accountant or someone or a tech person that knew the program really well to sit down with you and teach you. Back in those days, but I got Dreamtime guidance that blew me away, and I thought, man, if we could do that if that could happen with that, it could happen with anything. So deeper understanding is a hallmark of Pisces, and to have Neptune in Pisces is natural. The moon in Pisces or any water sign is natural. And Saturn in Pisces isn't necessarily natural, but I don't mind it. I don't tend to read in like exalted and detriment like that. I don't read astrology that way. I feel like every planet or every sign has every right to be connected to every planet in whatever way, shape, or form, and I'm not going to judge whether one thing is better than another. So anyway, Venus. Notice how we don't have the yacht anymore, but we still have Venus connected to the south node. So there really is adjustments that are being made in connection to relationships. Now we are really in the fork around and find out phase. We're developing a strong foundation in relationships or not. Because Venus will make those comparison values and decide, oh, no, you don't get into my circle of trust because you're not trustworthy. So this is moving into the weekend here, and especially as the moon gets closer and tighter to Neptune by noontime, and then the moon starts moving towards Mars. This is profoundly an important time to get clear on whatever it is that you're trying to work with. And you have all this, really wonderful energy here with Ceres has moved 1 degree ahead, connecting to the sun is moving tighter, close enough to Uranus to be effective. And so there's freedom coming in, freedom to just naturally be who you are. And even though we still have all this Aries energy up here, we have enough strong energy down here in the Taurian department, which is more about being a human being. You know, in Aries, it can be a human doer. Well, we need to settle into just being a human being and not having to accomplish so damn much all the time, right? Start questioning, pushing yourself all day long, or for long hours at a time, or for even maybe 4 hours when your limit is only 2. Maybe you can stop pushing yourself altogether and get inside of what brings more power into your body and what doesn't, and work on those things and do less and less and less of these things that you think you have to do, but maybe you don't really. Because maybe you can do exchange with someone else that loves doing, you know, like maybe someone in your home doesn't mind. Who would ever say love? But maybe, you never know. Maybe someone in your home doesn't mind doing laundry, but you hate it. And maybe you don't mind vacuuming, but they hate it. Well, I see a swap there. Like things like that. Just simple, very simple things like that. That is the energy of the sun connecting with Uranus to bring through more freedom, especially in duty-bound Taurus and Capricorn issues, parts of life, right? And yeah, so think in terms of what would bring more freedom and making those adjustments in relationships if you can negotiate that way. Because Venus is moving closer to the sun, and the sun is definitely shining the light there to the relationships of the past. Hold on one second. And it's really important to honor the relationships of the past, and then because it's going to get tighter and tighter. So, okay, let me go ahead and move to Sunday. Sunday, the moon's on the other side of Mars, so, and this is coming through at 6 a.m. So the deal with that has everything to do with a lot of quick-moving energy that might be kind of impulsive. You know, Mars rules Aries. With the moon in Aries, that's just too much. That's too much. It's a good morning, though, for exercise and for getting things done. It's not a good morning for sleeping in. And no matter how early, let's see, just in case, like if you happen to be a weirdo like me that wakes up really early, I mean, I've already back at 2 a.m. and the moon still, has crossed over. So you might not get a whole lot of sleep this night. You might want to go to sleep as early as you can, because I think you're gonna wake up early anyway. You know, but it's one of those just wake up and you're awake and you're not going back to sleep. It's that kind of energy. And you might be thinking about relationships because of, we've got that opposition there to the South Node, moving into the South Node. And the moon crossing over Mars, we've picked up a bunch of energy. Maybe you're just having dreams about moving around or driving, or maybe you wake up and you're like, wow, that was weird. Maybe you wake up realizing you had a flying dream or a swooshing around dream where you were like moving or jumping and swooshing and flying or whatever. Those kinds of things can happen with this configuration here. And then, but then you wake up and you're like, whoa, and you have to get going, and you're dealing with relationships, or you're dealing with balancing yourself out from all this intense energy here. Now, on another level, let's assume you sleep just fine, but you wake up and you're raring to go. Well, what you're raring to go about would be doing something new, something brand new. So if it is an exercise routine, just be careful not to overdo it. but it most likely, well, depending on the weather and where you're at, it might just be the best morning ever for a walk, getting out for a walk. And you can see that Mercury's moved ahead 1 degree. It's still in opposition to the south node, but it's at the the wax off stage. So it's a separating stage where we've learned something and we're moving even closer and closer to either healing something from within, dealing with past trauma, or we've done that already and now the gifts are coming through, something brand new is coming through. Because again, with Mercury and Chiron and Aries as well, in that third decan of blossoming, bringing through our gifts, brand new gifts coming through, because we decide how much we matter to ourselves and we don't abandon ourselves no matter what. We don't need to come first, and we're not afraid of being left out, because we don't leave ourselves out from ourselves, right? If you don't abandon yourself, it doesn't matter if other people abandon you, because you have you. And if you have you can make new friends. Yeah. So, okay. The moon also, the moon and Mars, you can see we have sextiling Pluto here. So there's some opportunities here to bring through some new, well, it's transformative energy with Pluto, and it can be emotionally transforming with the connection to, well, actually, no, hold on. The moon has moved away from that. That happened in the middle of the night. Ooh, that brings in more about the Dreamtime guidance. But so what I need to focus in on here, maybe if I go this way, there you go. Okay, so now you can see better how or I can see better as well. It's Mars and Neptune that are sextiling Pluto. So again, Mars having that new energy picked up from our spiritual experience with Neptune, and then with a connection to Pluto, with a double sextile there, this is the opportunity to bring some more freedom. Be more freely yourself. Be more freely connected to your soul, because Pluto's the soul. The spirit is just is everything. It encompasses everything. But our souls are the part of us that's our personality. It's our body. It's everything. I mean, it's not separate from the spirit, but until our souls are purified and free, they don't align and dissolve into our spirits. So spirit is always there, holding space for that pure place. Like our spirit is just always fine. Our spirit is always pure. But our souls are not often, right? Like everyone has that divine spark within, and some of us have it built up to where it's a bright light flame kind of a thing. But then other people they're very dimmed out because of the soul substance that's all crusty and dark and rigid that's on top of the spirit, so that you can't see the light of the spirit coming through. Well, this aspect here today is very conducive for being free, for bringing your spirit through freely through your soul. There's new energy there. So I like that. This is wonderful. Let's see, with the moon, anything else with the moon? It was just at opposition to the south node. Let me go forward a few hours and let's see how long it takes for the moon to get close to, there we go, that's close enough for me. Let's say 1 or 2 p.m., let's say anything after noon, the moon conjunct the north node is all about thinking about your future and long-term focus and who you want to be with and how you want to live, and balancing out your soul substance. This Aries Libra polarity is all about forging new frontiers, blazing your own trail, and with those like-minded friends and loved ones, your tribe, coming with you and you going with them, and you go back and forth, you're always with each other, but you're all headed in a brand new direction too. So I absolutely love that. And with that, I'm going to close this up and send you all just big hugs, big hugs. Oh, notice that Chiron is conjunct, I'm sorry, Mercury is conjunct Chiron today, too. That's very powerful. Exactly conjunct, but I'll talk more about that next week because it'll be there, too. We still have some time. So, okay, well, take good care, you guys. Bye.